Hey, loungers. I hope everybody's doing as great as I am this morning and on this beautiful, beautiful Monday. Hope everybody has a great work week as well as a great Thanksgiving week. Okay. I am not off today. Okay. I will be working today. I start around 9. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started. I do have some family in town, so everything is going great with that. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit this morning, real quick, before I get into work in regards to some things that have been going on in the world. Now, I definitely wanted to talk about T.D. Jakes. I also want to talk about the book club that Carrie Ann and I will be doing on Saturday. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Rev G and this toy situation, okay? Hey, KKC, appreciate you being in the building, as well as Steph Collins and YouTube Unfolded. Definitely appreciate you as well. And everybody else that's in the clouds. Make sure you guys hit the like button. We are about to get started. And again, I am not a medical professional, but I do want to give my opinion, okay, which is solely my opinion in regards to adult toys, adult playing with toys, and how that may affect a person psychologically. And what is normal in my mind, and what isn't normal in my mind. Again, this is my personal opinion about this, and I am in no way trying to give anybody any medical advice, okay? But make sure you guys are hitting the like button, and let's get into this right now. Hey, the beautiful Bernice. Definitely appreciate you being in the building. You said, I thought you were going to tell us he was coming out with a line of toys. That's hilarious. No, I'm not telling y'all about that. I don't have any toy line for Rev G to announce. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the things that have been kind of floating around between him defrauding charlatans and YM as well. Okay. And so I did a little bit of research on it myself, just to kind of see what was being said from, some experts or people who claim to be experts in regards to this matter. And one of the things I wanted to say is two things. Number one, a lot of times when we have our own opinion about a situation, we tend to look for information that would be what's called information bias, right? Where we look for information that will kind of, coincide with what our opinion already is. There, for one person who has an opinion, there's a million other people that have the very same opinion as you, right? But that doesn't mean that your opinion and their opinion is actually right or not harmful or even helpful, or that it's not, that is something that is harmful, right? And again, it's called information bias, right? So oftentimes when you feel passionate about a situation, or when you feel like a situation is, what you think it is, you'll look for other places that will confirm what you're thinking. And that's actually what it's called. It's called confirmation bias. Okay. So I wanted to bring that up before I actually go into some of the things that I had read in regards to this. So one of the things I read was from Psychology Today, okay, where it talked about child development and the use of toys, and how, the children's use of toys does actually affect that child later on in life. They will tend to play with certain things or play certain ways and in certain styles, like with, same-sex style. They play with the opposite sex or both. They play by themselves, these kinds of things. And these particular styles of play will develop a child's mental or help them develop mentally and as they grow, right? I noticed one thing about myself, and I had to go back to my own interpretation of this. Hey, Triggs, I appreciate you being in the building. I had to go back to my own interpretation of this as a child, and how I tended to play with not only the dolls that my parents purchased for me, but I also played with toys that my parents purchased for my brother as well. Okay. So he had a lot of wrestling figures. He had all the trucks and all the, the Matchbox cars and stuff like this. My cousin also is a male cousin. He also had those kinds of toys, but his mother was a little bit more lenient with him. He had more of the same gender kind of, toys and things like this. My cousin is actually a gay man. He's an openly gay man these days. He used to play a lot with my toys, my girl toys, my dolls and stuff like this. And we used to fight over my toys, right? It was crazy, but that's just kind of how we were growing up. Growing up, I never thought of him as, oh, you're gay or anything like that. We knew he was pretty feminine, right? But we didn't think of him as being gay, right? I mean, we were children, these weren't things that came across our minds. But I can definitely see how the use of toys as a child definitely developed my ways of thinking, or helped to develop how I thought in regards to male and female, as to, mothering and parenting and fathering and those kinds of things. My dolls tended to get married. They tended, these are things that I did when I was, in play with my own toys. My dolls tended to get married to a male doll that I had, and they would have this lavish life and, and various things like this, right? And these are kinds of the ways that I developed my thinking on, male and female gender roles and things along those lines. Okay. Now, as I got older, of course, I'm not going to say, of course, I'm just going to say, as I got older, I personally put those types of toys away. I remember when I was around maybe like 12, I would say, is when I stopped being so interested in doll play, right? So I didn't want to play with dolls anymore and, have the kind of, in imagination of playing with my dolls and they're going to the beach today and I can create this scene in my room with the beach and with all this stuff. And I'm going outside and sneaking sand from outside into the house and actually creating a beach scene and stuff like this. Those things changed when I turned around 12 or so, when I became more interested in the building of doll houses, right? So I started building doll houses and doing that thing. And my mother would help me with those things. We had kits and stuff that we would work on. And even my dad helped me with like stuff like the electrical lighting and different things like that for the houses. And I became really intricate in doing that, which actually developed a hobby that I have today. Okay. So one of that hobby is that I am a Sims player. Okay. That's something that a lot of y'all may not know, but I am a gamer. I do play The Sims. I absolutely love that game. I've been playing that game for many, many years now. And when I first learned about it, I learned about it from my daughter, right? And I was like really interested with the game. And it wasn't so much because I wanted to play with The Sims and play these life simulations and stuff like that. It was really for the development of building homes and building stuff, building different things within the game. And also modding the game became a thing for me too. So I did do a little bit of lifestyle play with them, and I would bring in different mods on the game. And I've had thousands and thousands of moderations to my game. Okay. So that is something that definitely developed from childhood, something that I absolutely love to do as a kid. Usually when I am playing The Sims, I'm just building something. For instance, lately, they came out with the apartments for rent. And so now I've been building these different apartments all over the place and stuff, and just moving families in and different things like this. And it's, I don't really play that long as I used to. I might pick it up for like once every 2 weeks now. And just start building something or doing something like that. And it does bring a sense of nostalgia. It brings a sense of relief, a sense of comfort and so forth and so on, because it brings back a lot of childhood memories, good childhood memories that I had, right? So I do think that there is a connection to video games and, childhood nostalgia, right? And which is why we may see like a lot of Comic-Cons and stuff like that going on, where you've got adults, that dress up in Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever, and they go to these events. And I think those are actually some pretty cool ass events, right? Even with Star Wars is for most of us a childhood nostalgia, right? It's a movie that came out first in the 70s. And then, grew and developed into the 80s. I remember seeing one of my first movies at the movies. It was Star Wars, right? And so forth. And so some of those things from those movies actually bring back great childhood memories, right? So I do think that it's important to distinguish the fact that many adults actually do collect toys like that they put them up for, on display. They put these things up on the shelf, and kind of want them on display. If I could have a specific room in my home where I could collect multiple toys from the past, right? Where I had like He-Mans, and I had some wrestling figures, especially some of the older wrestling figures that, we don't see nowadays, some of the more rare figures and stuff like that. I would most definitely do that. My brother still has his baseball cards collection that he started when he was a child. And that's something that he has held on to for many years. And it's actually worth quite a bit, right? Because of the historical pieces that he has. He has a lot of baseball cards of people that aren't even alive anymore, right? And so forth and so on. So, I don't think that there's anything wrong with the collection of toys. I don't think that there's anything wrong with having those toys even in your presence, if it's in your office or somewhere like that. And I don't think it's anything wrong with, the nostalgia of these things. And like I said, if I ever had the opportunity, I would definitely start collecting a bunch of shit, right? I would probably become a hoarder with how many of these toys that there are to collect. Now, I do have a couple of things. One of my mother used to buy the Hes Trucks. I don't know if people know about those, but most people from the north in Jersey and Philly area and stuff like that, you're aware of Hes gas station. And they used to have these Hes trucks back in the day that were like these Christmas trucks, right? They would come out around Christmas time, and you can collect them, and they look like the trucks that would go around, in real life and, give out gas and stuff to the Hes gas stations. My mom used to get those from my brother, and she used to also love these any kind of trucks. Okay. So anytime we went to like a rest stop or anything like that while we were on our way to Florida or Canada or wherever we were going, we would always stop at the rest stops, and my mom would be just mesmerized by these trucks, right? So to this day, she still actually collects collector's items like that. She still has some, and I have a couple of hers too, right up in my closet, right? So I do have a couple of things like that. My mom also used to collect porcelain dolls, right? But I will tell you guys, I'm going to say this. My mom is in her 70s, and there's not one time I've seen in her life, and in my lifetime, my mother pull any of these dolls down and start playing with these dolls like when she was a child, or pulling any of these trucks out and start, zooming on the floor with the trucks or anything like that. I haven't seen her do that, right? I have seen her play with us as children. I've seen her play with my kids and my brother's son as children, you know what I mean? And play games with them and, and do things like that, as I've done too. But I've never seen her just physically just playing with these toys, right? I've also myself wouldn't necessarily just start playing with my dolls or playing with my trucks or anything. If I were to start collecting those again, I wouldn't see myself doing that, because at a certain point in my life, I started to develop into other things, right? So after I stopped doing the doll building, hold on, guys. After I stopped doing the doll building, right, I started to, I was interested in other things, you know what I mean? Of course, gaming came out, we were doing the Nintendo. Of course, we had the Atari way before then. Then we had the Nintendo. Then we had the 64. Then we had the Sega. We had, all kinds of games. And I actually got into Street Fighter. I got into that game. I got into, what's the other game? Mortal Kombat, right? Mortal Kombat was my shit. As a matter of fact, when the movie came out, you couldn't tell me nothing, okay, about Raiden. Raiden was my favorite. Chun-Li was my other favorite. You couldn't tell me nothing about them, right? And those are things I still love even now. But the fact that my mentality has developed so much, becoming a parent, becoming now a grandparent, and experience in life. I was a mother, I was a wife. Experience in life like I did definitely changed and helped develop, who I am now, right? And so if I was to deal with any toys, it would be more for nostalgic purposes, okay? And not for the purpose of brain development, the purpose of developing, my personality and my character. And that is where I think there's a gray area in this, right? I think that there's kind of a fine line in, what you're saying is normal and abnormal. I think oftentimes, like I said, when you look for information, you want to find, confirmation bias. You want to find information that's going to help you agree with what you believe is normal or what you believe is okay, as opposed to, actually taking a hard look at situations and saying, is this really a psychological issue, right? Is this an issue of a case of arrested development or a case of where I haven't been able to develop the way that I should have based off of trauma or based off of something that was a blockage in my childhood that caused me to continue to look for this extra development or this extra whatever it is at this age, when, there are other things at this age that are more complex that will actually help me to develop in ways, that are more appropriate to my age, right? So like I said, for instance, there's Legoland, right? There's other places you can go with your children where you can build things, you can do certain things, and it does help you to develop certain ways, right? Like when I'm playing my Sims game and, I'm building things and stuff like this. I mean, shit, y'all, if y'all seen my Sims account, y'all would see, like, y'all would think I'm an architect, the way that I be building shit on there, right? How I've learned how to do certain things in certain ways. I've learned how to cut, with my mouse and make certain things a certain way, make certain corners a certain way. I've learned how to use Shift, Alt, and all kinds of stuff and different other hotkeys to create these, these buildings, right? But again, so this helps to develop, as an adult, to keep things, I guess on point, to keep things clear, right? But I can't see myself like physically playing with Barbie dolls anymore, right? I can't see myself physically playing with Matchbox cars and actually imagining somebody in it and imagining somebody really racing, right? And these kinds of things, which are things that children do, okay? So again, it's very important to, and this isn't a stab at anybody, but I did, Rev G, you brought it up, right? So I want to talk about this. I think it's very important, and I think it's a fine line in trying to find and trying to normalize something that, again, very well may be a blockage in your psychological development as a child. I'm not a doctor. I'm not, a nurse. I can't give you any medical advice. I also am not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So I don't have any honest, medical answer in regards to that. But I don't think it takes a medical expert to understand trauma, to understand childhood trauma, and to understand the importance of working through those things and, and then finding ways to develop normally as an adult, right? Because you can end up, stumping and stumping your own development, even as an adult, because development doesn't stop, right? I think we all kind of understand that. I think we do get to a point where we get it that, you don't stop learning, right? You'll never stop learning, but you shouldn't be learning on the same level as you were as a child in your 40s and 50s, right? I think that there's a big difference in how a child plays with, with toys as opposed to how an adult views toys, right? And so I think that's important. And I think that's something that, you should be talking about with a psychiatrist, right? A real psychiatrist, not somebody that's just going to pat you on the back and tell you what you want to hear, but is going to be honest with you about those things, okay? And that's just my thoughts on that. Again, like I said, I am not an expert on this. I cannot give you, expert advice. I cannot give you medical advice on this. And I want to make that very clear. But I also want it to be clear that when you purposely look for information that will just confirm what you believe is okay, as opposed to looking unbiasedly for information that even can oppose what you think, so that you can be challenged on your thoughts, and then, which is what adults do. You can be challenged on your thoughts, and then you can develop, you can develop a healthy way of thinking when it comes to these things, right? And that you're not stuck in a state of arrested development or stuck in a state of the past, right? And that's very, very, very important. And I just wanted to bring that up, okay? Again, I'm not an expert, so please don't take this as, she's giving medical advice, because no, I am not, okay? And so anyway, let's just go ahead and get into this. You said, that's why I play GTA, Sims on steroids. That's a fact. And actually, I don't play GTA, but I do like the game. I just haven't never gotten into it. But GTA is very much like The Sims. You can do pretty much anything with GTA as well. You can mod it down the way that you want to. And The Sims can get very racy as well, child. Okay, so just like GTA. So, but either way, shout out to you for that. You said, I love Toca Boca. Okay, you said, exactly, Pre. You said, I'm the same with Toca Boca. You said, what it do, KKC, and YouTube Unfolded. You said, hey, beautiful Bernice. You said, hey to Collins. You said, I'm going to tell y'all something that will surprise the hell out of y'all. I hated toys, always. I like books and my bicycle. And, at some point I did too. I had gotten into the Babysitter's Club books. I had gotten into probably every book that you can think of that kids liked at the time, right? So definitely can relate to that. And also my bike, when I was finally able to get out the yard and get off the porch, get off the steps. I was allowed to ride my bike, around the neighborhood. And that became a bigger pastime to me than playing with toys and carrying on. You just move on and you develop, right? And you grow into other things. And even though nostalgic toys and even board games and stuff like that also still interest me, like the game of Monopoly, right? The game of Monopoly, for instance, definitely brings back childhood memories. My grandmother used to always bring the Monopoly game out when we had dinner with the family, right? So we used to have dinner once a month with the family. The family would come in and we would have, we would have dinner there. We would have it at our house or at my aunt's house. And we always played Monopoly every single time, right? And my grandma used to beat our ass in the game, okay? So, and we would play for hours and hours and hours. Anybody that knows the game of Monopoly knows that that game can go on for the whole fucking night, right? Or the whole day, or whatever. So those bring back great memories and stuff like that. I still bring out that game to this day, during family gatherings and stuff like that, and stuff. But, so like I said, it's just really important to make sure that you're properly mentally challenging yourself, right? That you're not just, you're challenging yourself like you were when you were a kid. You know what I'm saying? But, that you're more challenging yourself on the level mentally that you should be at this point. And don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't be, and that it's okay to, to be underdeveloped in these ways, especially if you don't have certain, conditions that you've been diagnosed with, right? And I know that they don't use the term Asperger's anymore, but those are one of the conditions that they used to use. There's autism. There's various, conditions that are on the spectrum that may, cause, certain behaviors. But you got to be honest with yourself about those things as well. And you got to get, a diagnosis for these things. And that's not anybody's business either. So if that is something that you have been diagnosed with or you are diagnosed with, then, okay, that's a very different story to me, right? Than as opposed to somebody who doesn't have such a diagnosis and they're just playing with toys. It is actually something that most adults would think is quite strange, right? Just because of just the optics of it all. Okay. And it's, again, it's not, from a medical point of view or anything like that. So, I just wanted to make that clear. Make a change. I appreciate you being in the building. You said morning, Miss T pre-chat and King Triggs. Okay. Ray Triggs or Ray Riggs. Trey Riggs, Tay Riggs. You said peace to Triggs and that. You said, I love Pleasant Valley High books. Me too. Absolutely did. You said, I like these presidential biographies made for kids. The kids at school ensured I knew I was a nerd. Okay. Hey, We on Block. I definitely appreciate you, bro. You said, I was into electronics, 2XL, robot, air drum, Walkman, handheld games, etc. Me too. There was this, I was watching the show What's Happening. Y'all remember the show What's Happening, right? I often watch old school shows like that. I watch the What's Happening, the That's My Mama's. I'll be watching all that stuff sometimes. And sometimes I watch it just to see some of the things that we used to see, you know what I mean? And some of the things we used to do and some of the things we found fun, right? Like, for instance, sitting on the phone for hours and twirling the cord as opposed to walking around with our cell phone in our hand, right? But there was this one game that she had. It wasn't even really a game. It was actually a calculator, but kids used it game wise. It was called The Professor, right? It was an old school thing, and it had like these orangey, yellowish colors. And Dee was playing with that the other day. And I was like, I remember having that, right? I remember playing with that, but she was using it as a calculator. And I don't remember using it as a calculator, but I do remember playing with it often, right? Now, maybe my brother used it as a calculator because he's older than me. So maybe he used it as a calculator. I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember playing with it. And I remember seeing the digits on it and all kinds of stuff. And just, it's funny how those types of toys bring back, childhood memories, good childhood memories, and that nostalgic, warm feeling, right? So I don't want to take away from, those feelings and those emotions. But again, I want you to be developing properly. I want you to be mentally in the right space when you're doing this, right? And if you are, if you're not, if you haven't been diagnosed with something that may cause you to have, to have some developmental delays in some things, then I think that you should be very cognitive of these kinds of things. All right, so let's go on, guys. I actually want to move on from that because I really don't have much time left. Hold on, let me see what time it is. Yeah, I don't got much time left because I want to start work today at 9. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about Bishop T.D. Jakes, because yesterday, if those that don't know, Bishop T.D. Jakes had a medical emergency at the Potter's house down there in Texas, and it looked very serious. Okay. Now, I remember earlier this year, he has been in the heap of quite a bit of scandalous things. Okay. A couple of things that happened was he had first been allegedly exposed for hanging around P. Diddy. Okay. That was the first big thing and the first big bombshell that came out about him. I also remember for a couple of years now that there have been quite a bit of prophets, YouTube prophets, that have been coming out and claiming that Bishop Jakes is about to be exposed and that God is not playing with this man and different things like this. And I'm saying all this for a reason. It's not because I'm trying to pass judgment on him. I'm just speaking right now. Okay. And I actually prayed about this before I talked about it. So I prayed extensively about this before I talked about it. Anyway, so, there was a lot of stuff that was coming out and, people were saying this and saying that. And then when that whole P. Diddy thing dropped and they were showing pictures of him with P. Diddy and they were making Masonic symbols and different things like this, it did have people side-eyeing T.D. Jakes. Like, what are you doing over here with P. Diddy? And they talking about these freak-offs and they talking about this. And how could this upstanding man actually have his name in with the likes of people like this, right? But I want to make this very clear, and I want to say this part. There hasn't been anything that has really come forward. I mean, people have made rumors and said that there's video evidence of him being a quote unquote power bottom and all these other things, right? It was a lot of crap that came out, but nothing is actually came from it, right? Nobody actually has provided any actual evidence of any of this yet, right? There haven't been, I've seen some videos where there's been some grainy videos of things where where you can't really tell if it's him or not, and that kind of stuff. But I haven't seen any concrete evidence of him being a part of any of these Diddy parties, okay? Another thing that happened is T.D. Jakes actually came out. I believe it was either Christmas or it was New Year's. I don't quite remember, but it was almost a year ago now, where he came out and he was like, he tried to get ahead of it and was like, yeah, I know the truth, and and so forth and so on, and God is not going to play about me, and I'm these are lies, these are vicious lies, and we're not going to we're not going to feed into this stuff. I remember when during that sermon and during that conversation, he was violently shaking, right? Like I remember his hands being very, very shaky. And I didn't want to judge him on that at the time, because I remember specifically when, and you guys know now, some of the things that my family was experiencing. I remember psychologically when I was really, really coming to terms with what was happening. I remember feeling those same shakes in my hands and stuff, just out of nervousness, just out of, out of stress, just being all this tremendous stress being on me. I remember my body physically reacting to those things, right? Where I had to talk to my doctor about these things. I had to see, hey, what's going on here? I want to make sure I'm not having a stroke. I want to make sure I'm not having a heart attack. What's happening to me? And, it was a matter of taking it easy. It was a matter of developing different ways to view things and things like that, speaking and talking to us family, going through counseling and different things like this, which is what helped with these things, right? Of course, I wasn't facing any kind of accusations like that. But again, it was a very stressful time for the family. And like I said, I remember my body physically reacting to that stress, right? So I didn't want to judge him when I saw him doing all that violent shaking like he was, when he was talking about this. I mean, he could have just been angry. And like I said, I remember being angry and physically reacting to that anger, right? And seeing those reactions in my own body. So, these are things that humans kind of do when you're under stress, okay? So the other thing that happened was we had the likes of this predator, or at least alleged predator, Larry Reid, who came out and he wanted to there was two interviews he wanted to do. One of them was with Manasseh Jordan, who is a known scammer, okay, within the church. He has scammed multiple people. He has actually been convicted of these things. Based off of these robocalls that he was making money. Him and his own father were all involved with, which is Bernard Jordan, who is also Larry Reid's mentor, quote unquote, as well as his minister, his pastor. Okay, so most people know the story about Larry Reid that came out. That's been hitting these streets for a couple of years now. That there's a few men, there's about at least 3 that have accused Larry Reid of sexual misconduct. One of them was definitely a minor at the time, and, has been very open about speaking on these things, okay? So when Larry Reid first came out and started talking about T.D. Jakes, I was already side-eyeing him, right? Like, how dare you get up here and try to come for T.D. Jakes when you have one of the most checkered pasts in the church that most people can speak of, right? I mean, not that you have the worst. I've seen a lot worse stories than even Larry Reid's, but he has a hellified story. And how dare he try to come against some of the likes of T.D. Jakes when there's actual men that are out here talking about you, who haven't had checkered pasts, who don't have, accusations of scamming and accusations of molestation and things like this, right? But you want to suddenly come for, T.D. Jakes' neck, and you want a person to the likes of Manasseh Jordan to speak on it, right? So Manasseh came out and he was trying to say that T.D. Jakes was inappropriate with him and all this other stuff. And the first thing that the Larry Readers, the whatever they call the LRRs or whatever they call them, wanted to go for was like as if, Manasseh was a child when these things happened, right? Manasseh never physically said that. He never said he was a child when these things happened. He was saying like, this happened when he was 18, 19, when he was running with that whole circuit that T.D. Jakes and them got. But he never went into full details in regards to all that. Like he just kept giving these half of stories or like portions or pieces of stories, in regards to this. He didn't really actually speak too deeply on things. He was just kind of, giving you what you wanted, kind of what the AFWs do. You know what I mean? How they give you what you want. They tell you pieces and portions, just, to keep you in, in suspense about things. Right. And then next thing you know, he stopped talking about it altogether. Now, I don't know if T.D. Jakes, his legal team actually approached Manasseh in regards to this. But I don't know what happened, but all I know is Manasseh went ghost on this situation. He wasn't talking about it anymore. Okay. And Larry couldn't get anybody to talk about it until he got a hold of this guy named Dwayne Youngblood. Okay. And I didn't even know this dude's name until a friend of mine told me his name. I had to ask her. Well, I was talking to her about it, and she was like, "Oh, you're talking about Dwayne Youngblood." And I'm like, I had to look up the name to match the name with the face, okay? Because this guy is a disgusting, demonic, nasty entity, okay? But either way, Larry Reid wanted to interview this guy, okay? Because this guy claimed that T.D. Jakes had been inappropriate with him, right? And so the guy had this whole story about how he had been, R-worded as a child by his own father, and that, his sister had also been through the same thing, and that they had been through these terrible, terrible things that they were subjected to as a child. And then, he ended up in Jake's church, and he ended up praying with Jakes one day along with his mom. And, Jakes had went into this prayer with him, and they cried together, and they went through this whole emotional experience. And then he had came and took Jakes back to the church or somewhere, and Jakes tried to come on to him, right? This is this Youngblood guy's story, okay? I'm not saying that this is true. This is what this guy says, okay? So he claimed he was like 18 or 19 when this happened, and that Jakes, ended up, coming on to him, and he said he, quote unquote, died inside. He was so hurt by what Jakes had done. But then he called him like the next day, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. And, I'm not going to speak on, broken people and people that have went through different things that never got any help for it. I can't say how they would react to something because it's possible that that did happen, right? But he said he ended up calling him like the next day, and Jakes called him or whatever it was. And then Jakes ended up giving him these instructions on things, these sexual instructions, like, you can't be sleeping with anybody else because I'm still sleeping with my wife and I don't want to bring her anything. And I will take care of you the rest of your life. I'll give you this. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. So again, it's possible that this actually happened, right? But this again is a relationship between two men. Okay. I can see how that could be an extremely abominable thing to the church. I see how this could be deceiving to people. I see how this could be, you collecting money and collecting things, from the people of the church, and how deceptive that could be. Because these people generally who are a part of the Potter's House or a part of most of these Christian churches would not, would not find this kind of behavior appropriate. And therefore they would not be, they wouldn't be giving off money, and passing up money to the church, had they known these things, right? So I do think that, that Jakes, if this is true, right, and if he does have, sexual relationships with men, I do think that that was inappropriate in the sense of deceiving his congregants, right? I can't even say he was deceiving his wife, because a lot of times women will just know already what's going on. She might have been down with it. We don't really know, right? But ultimately, if he was deceptive to his congregants and to his church, I can see how that would be an extreme abomination, right? Now, not that I'm saying him being gay is an abomination or whatever the case may be, but being deceptive is, okay? And being deceptive for the sake of collecting money most definitely is as well, okay? So I do think that there's a fine line with that. But again, this particular man, this Youngblood guy, is actually a person who has been convicted not once, not twice, but at least 3 times over abuse of young boys, okay? Boys who were actually children, 15 years old, 16 years old, okay? And stuff like this. And these boys told on him, okay? They told on him, and he actually went to jail for, S-wording children, okay? This same guy who Larry Reid wanted to try to run T.D. Jakes' name through the mud over, right, is the same guy who was actually convicted of these kinds of crimes. So, but there's never been any conviction of this. There hasn't been anybody who has come forward and said that T.D. Jakes has molested them or that he's done anything inappropriate to them as a child or anything along those lines. There's a big difference in, S-wording a child and having a sexual relationship with a man. There's 2 different, very, very different, very, very different things, okay? And so, yeah, you can pass judgment on him. You can talk shit about him. You can do this and that. But if you weren't the one that was actually deceived by him and sent money in the name of the church or something like that with the idea that, he's a heterosexual man who is this quote unquote leader in your eyes and these kinds of things, I don't really see what your gripe would be. If you're not his wife, if you're not married to him, you know what I'm saying? And you were being deceived in that marriage to him, again, not sure how this, would affect you, right? I could see how, if you have this mindset of the church, if you have this mindset of what religion should look like, if you have this mindset of what a minister should be, then I could see how you could think that's an abomination, but it's not a crime, okay? It's a very different thing to, speak of somebody who has R-worded a child or S-worded a child or M-worded a child, as opposed to a person who has had a relationship, whether it was toxic or not, with a grown man, okay? Those are 2 very different things. And it was the very disgusting of a person like Larry Reid to try to use a man like Dwayne Youngblood to try to drag T.D. Jakes through the mud, even though he claimed that he was doing this as an adult with this man, okay? So I wanted to make that very, very clear that T.D. Jakes has never been accused of or charged with, doing anything to anybody's children, okay? But I can understand how stressful that could be, right? Where you've got all these different rumors floating around about you. You're a public figure. You step down from, you even stepped down as head pastor of the church, and allowed your daughter to take over and so forth and so on, because you don't want, all this scrutiny on the actual church itself. I thought that was pretty noble of him to do that. And I can only imagine how much stress he is under, right? So that's my thoughts on him. That, I don't know. When I first heard about it yesterday, I was like, whoa. And I actually talked and prayed about it, right? Like, wow, wow. I remember hearing these prophets saying this stuff and everything else. And, it very well may be that, God has told this man, like, your time is up with this shit. I'm not going to keep letting you, deceive my people. I'm not going to keep letting you do this, right? It's possible that happened. It's possible that, he really did have that conversation with T.D. Jakes, right? And that T.D. Jakes, is very aware of it. And he just kept being haughty and continued on with this life anyway, knowing that God was warning him, right? And then finally, he's at the point where he's like, okay, this is a lie. I got to get my shit together, right? And God, being the merciful and loving God that God is, will give you another chance, And I think that's what we saw yesterday. And that's my opinion of it. Again, I don't know. But I think that's more along the lines of what we saw yesterday, the stress of it all, everything just finally, just hitting this man's shoulders, and this man finally saying, you know what, God, I surrender to you. If this is what you want me to do, if you want me to go, may I go in peace. Because he actually was praying and praying that prayer. And then he went into this, whatever this development of this medical development was. And again, we don't really know whether it was a stroke. We don't know what it was, right? But according to the Potter's House, they claimed that it was a slight medical issue. I don't think this was slight at all. I think they were trying to, just kind of get ahead of it. I also think that, according to the daughter and her husband, they're saying that he's actually getting better. Okay. And that, they're trying to make him sit down, right? Like, this guy is always on the move. He want to get up, he want to go, and he's probably feeling the power of God. There's a lot of intercessors. There's a lot of praying warriors out here that are out here praying for this man right now. I even put up a prayer for him. I did not, go into this, oh, God, save him and all that stuff. I definitely said your will be done, right? Like, let your will be done in this situation. Because I've learned that when God puts us through judgment, that we don't need to be putting them through prayer, right? That's not the time to do that, but that's the time to allow God to move in his way and to let him do whatever he's going to do, right? And let the outcome be that. And that's kind of where I'm at with this situation with Jakes, okay? My prayer is that, God's will is done in this situation. And, of course, I definitely hope to see him, get better. I think that he has a lot more to bring to the world. And he also may very well have a different message now, right? And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to with this situation. But either way, I just wanted to give my opinion about that. I appreciate y'all being in the building. Let me go ahead and look at y'all comments, and then I'm actually going to end the show because I'm about to get started with work in just a moment. Let me get up here real quick. Okay. You said, I also think Palmer is trying to victimize himself because he hopes we'll criticize him for the toys. It's like he's throwing it in our faces. Absolutely. He likes to play a victim often, and he likes to find ways to become the victim again, over and over again, just for you to speak on it and stuff like that. So I absolutely agree. Yeah, that happened. You said, I'm going to keep my thoughts on Swallowed Up to myself for now. I was going to talk about it yesterday, but I wanted to reserve that. I needed to talk with God first. And now that I have, this is my thoughts on this. This is my public thoughts on this anyway. You said, I'm not a prophet at all, but I think he's a heretic and a money grubber. Absolutely. You said, I agree with that. There's not a lot of those gay Diddy rumors except the rumors themselves. Exactly. You said he is a man with flaws, sins, and physical ailments. He has the money to get the best care. Absolutely. I agree. You said, if y'all send me $8.88, I can tell you a word. Okay. That's what Manasseh was doing, child. You said, please remember to hit the like button. Yes, please do that. You said, I've been to Potter's House many times, but wouldn't go again. I've never been there, but I know people that have been there. And I also know people that used to be members of the church and they're no longer members. For various reasons. Hey, Sam Rowe, appreciate you being in the building. You said checkered like a damn checkerboard. Okay. You said good morning to Sam Rowe. You say hi to the chat. Okay. Everybody's speaking to each other. Okay. You said leaders in the church must be a husband, spouse to only one wife. Adultery of any kind is a disqualification. Right. Whether, we don't even have to get into the conversation of whether he's gay or not, because again, that is an issue between him and his wife. And also the gay part, it is a part of deception when it comes to the church, because there's many of those saints that would not have been given this money to the church and funding the church like they were, had they known he was living that lifestyle. The same thing with Tyler Perry. Like when, if people really knew that Tyler Perry was, gay, I don't think that he wouldn't have become as big as he is now, because he became big off of those plays. And he did that off the Chitlin circuit. Let's be real. You said swallowed, protected Elon, and I lost any respect I had for him back then. Birds of a feather protect each other. 100%. You said no man or woman is without sin. Yep. Hey, Hoodie, definitely appreciate you being in the building. Okay, guys, well, I'm out of here. I definitely appreciate all of y'all for coming out today. Make sure y'all do hit the like button on the way out. And guys, let me go ahead and put my outro video. I will talk to y'all later. And peace, guys. Thank y'all for watching.